1,000 young climate activists with the Sunrise Movement descended on Capitol Hill on Monday to demand a Green New Deal, a plan for the U.S. to become carbon neutral within a decade and create tens of millions of jobs in the renewable energy sector.
Things that would fall under it are moving our society to 100% renewables, creating good, livable wage jobs for anyone who wants one to stop the climate crisis, alleviating and beginning to eliminate poverty, especially for those who are most impacted, who are in the nexus of pollution and poverty every single day. It would look like transforming our public transportation, our entire energy system, and ultimately eliminating greenhouse gas emissions from every sector.
For the second time since Democrats won control of the House in the midterms, the Sunrise Movement held a sit-in in top-ranking Democrat Nancy Pelosi's office. They demanded the creation of a Green New Deal-focused select committee that can draft legislation, as proposed by Representative-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Pelosi is the likely next House Speaker.
We are 3 times the size that we were just 3 weeks ago when we were here before.
In response to last month's protests, Pelosi said she would reinstate 2007's Select Committee on Energy Independence and Global Warming. But Sunrise says that's not enough.
The previous committee would talk about climate change, would talk about the science, but wouldn't actually have legislative powers.
The activists also targeted incoming House Majority Leader Representative Steny Hoyer of Maryland and incoming Rules Committee Chair Representative Jim McGovern. 143 were arrested in the sit-ins. McGovern endorsed the Select Committee for a Green New Deal, becoming the 23rd representative to sign on.
I am committed to this Select Committee. I want to make sure that it happens, right?
Really, Congress people all over the country are coming out in support of this because of how politically popular it is, and that is on the national agenda in a big way.
Hoyer said he appreciated the protesters' passion and that he was happy to hear from them, but he didn't address their demands. Sunrise noted that Hoyer has accepted $250,000 from fossil fuel executives, lobbyists, and PACs, and suggests that may influence his decisions. They want Democrats to reject such influence.
So the Select Committee would have every member that is part of it pledge to not take any money from fossil fuel executives. We need to make sure as the American people that this Select Committee that is meant to address climate change at the scale that is required, that we know that they're not in the back pockets of fossil fuel CEOs or being influenced in any way.
They had a similar message for West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who's a leading contender for the top Democrat on the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee.
He has taken a lot of fossil fuel money. He literally shot a piece of climate legislation, famously.
Hours before the sit-ins, activists held 50 lobbying sessions with Democratic leaders. The New Deal was a series of public work projects, policies, and reforms enacted by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the 1930s. The unprecedented economic intervention helped pull the U.S. out of the Great Depression. Like its namesake, the New Deal, the Green New Deal will take massive investment. But the activists say that government funds need to be reallocated.
The IMF estimates that we spend $10 million a minute in subsidies for the fossil fuel industry. And we've spent trillions in dollars on these industries, massive giveaways and subsidies. I would say that we have spent a lot more on billionaires and fighter jets than we have spent on actually improving our economy and our society so that it works for all people.
The protesters say the time to act is now. Last week, a report from the Global Carbon Project showed that in 2018, carbon emissions reached an all-time high globally. And a recent report from the globe's leading body on climate change shows that we may just have 12 years left to avoid irreversible effects of climate change.
The IPCC report gave us 12 years. I'm 23, 12 years, I'm 35. That's when people start families. We don't have time to waste anymore. We need this now.
The Sunrise Movement knows that fighting the climate crisis is an uphill battle. On the same day they took to the nation's capital, the U.S., Saudi Arabia, Russia, and Kuwait downplayed the results of that very same IPCC report at the UN's International Climate Talks, or COP24.
We are facing an opposition that will stop at nothing to squeeze the last bit of money out of the earth for their own profit.
But they say that if their Green New Deal is successful, it could set a global example.
The Green New Deal, drafting this legislation, would really be setting an example for hopefully the rest of the world. And part of the actual resolution is being a leader in green technology, because once we have the incentives, companies are going to start innovating and meeting these needs that we have for renewable energy. And hopefully we can kind of use
what America hopefully will do to address climate change as a platform for the rest of the world. Because, climate change is a global problem, and we can only solve this problem if the international community comes together as well on this issue and makes a change.
And the stakes couldn't be higher.
Where my family's from, in southern India, an extremely strong monsoon season displaced 1 million people and put them in refugee camps. I want to be real that every decimal point of warming that we avoid could save the lives of millions of people.
I go to school in Santa Barbara, and last year my finals were canceled because the fires were so bad there. I have asthma. I literally could not leave to study. It was totally debilitating. This apocalypse far off world that we keep talking about, climate change, is not far off anymore. It's here right now, and the clock is ticking, and honestly, we've run out of time, so we have to do this now.
For The Real News with Taylor Hebden, Darna Noor, Washington.
And together